Okay, looks like the panelists are here. And I also want to introduce our Assistant Dean of Admissions, Kathy Cassiano.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate that you're here on a Friday and it's cold, and I know I'd rather be bundled up in a blanket at home right now, but I want to thank you for being here. I am a 2007 grad of the law school. I practiced family law and criminal defense for a number of years, and now I've been back doing admissions full-time for 9 years. I think one of the best parts is getting to see you all who are sort of at the brink, at the cusp of thinking about law school. Maybe you haven't already applied, and then you see these students here who have had some great achievements, accomplishments. And so it's great to see that sort of come full circle. So if you have any questions throughout the day, both Director Chavez and I are available. We definitely want to talk with you. If there's anything you want to ask us about the school, about the admissions, our applications are due March 1st if you haven't already applied. So definitely just let us know. And I will turn it over to, are you going to start the podcast? And if you all want to introduce yourselves as well too.
Please grab a water if you'd like. Have a seat here. Thank you. And yeah, so I was just mentioning to Dean Cassiano that we're broadcasting and recording on Zoom. So we'll have to have you on a mic in order to have that picked up and recorded. Okay, so I got you guys here down here. Okay. We'll have these actually. So if you want to pass around the mic, we'll probably do that in a second. Yeah, I think one of the things we'll start out first is introducing yourselves, and then I will go into a little bit of the segments of some of the podcasts. For everybody, we had a special coverage last year on the advocacy program with Katie Chang, who is Katie Fang, I'm sorry, who has a podcast called Class Action, in which she covered 3 law schools across the country, St. Mary's being one of the chosen one, and being able to just kind of provide coverage about what is advocacy, what are the current trends in law school, as well as in the undergraduate level for moot court and so on. So let me go ahead and give the mic over. If you'd like to introduce yourself and pass it on.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mariela Encinas. I'm currently a 3L here at St. Mary's Law School. And yeah, so I'll pass the mic now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine Olguin. Just graduated in May, took the bar. Thank God I passed it. And now I'm working as a criminal defense attorney at La Norton Law Group.
Hi guys, I'm Andy Vizcarra and I'm an assistant district attorney at Bexar County. But yeah, I graduated with these guys in May. So.
Hi, my name is Cole Davila. I graduated with these two and passed the bar with these two in May and then July with the bar. And I'm currently working at an immigration law firm while I wait for some medical processing stuff for the Army JAG.
Awesome. Okay, if you just hold on to the mic for a second, I will play one segment first, just kind of answering what is the National Trial Team. For those unfamiliar, I hope that this might give some insight. And then if our panelists will kind of comment a little bit about it, I got some questions for you.
Y'all ready for me?
And now, introducing Assistant Dean AJ Danila Zenduna.
Woo! 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 Oh my God! Stand up! Stand up! Stand up! Stand up! No, stand up! Stand up! Stand up! Stand up! Pound on the table! Pound on the table! Oh my God! Oh my God! Woo! I'm the Dean of Advocacy. So, believe it or not, we already did some advocacy here today. None of you wanted to stand up and whoop whoop and pound on the table, but I got you to do that. That to me is the world of advocacy. Getting people to do something that they don't want to do on their own. For me, it's in the courtroom. I want the judge to do what I want the judge to do. I want the jury to do what I want the jury to do. And I need to train you to do what I do. That's my world. Close your eyes for a second. Last night, you thought about your first day in law school. there was a picture in your head. How many of you imagined yourself in front of a jury or a judge making an argument? It's okay to dream. And here, we're gonna help you fulfill that dream for each and every one of you that want it. Some of you are here because something happened in your life. Some of you have been wronged, or a family member has been wronged. Some of you have been victims, and that's why you're here, because you want to make a difference. It's just a small number of people that can control our liberty to make sure that it is maintained. You have a unique responsibility. We're doing really important stuff here. And I need you to keep going. The national trial team, we practice going to trial. As a member of the national trial team, before you graduate, you will have no less than 70 trials under your belt practicing in front of judges and law practitioners. I invite you to be a member of the national trial team. Your success depends on each other. Put your arm around each other, take care of each other, and good luck in law school.
That was our Dean of Advocacy, Professor AJ Bellido, who I had him as a professor in my third year of law school. And that was a speech to our 1Ls at orientation. So panelists, do you remember that? Or do you at least remember AJ's spirit? And did he ask you why you wanted to get into law school? Why did you all enter law school yourselves?
Okay, so this is like taking us all the way back. I don't know how many of you were like me, that I always wanted to be a prosecutor and I didn't know why. Maybe it was like TV, maybe it was like Law and Order SVU, that you're like in a courtroom, you're arguing, all that stuff. But that's what I wanted to do. And I came in knowing that I wanted to do that. And St. Mary's gave me quite literally every skill that I have to do the job that I have now. And I think over the course of, that's why I came to law school. And I think that's kind of like why we joined, and it's just given us all these wonderful skills. So.
Okay. Well, I knew I wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer probably since I was a teenager. I just really saw how a lot of people were treated by their lawyers at that time. And, they would just give them money. They would just be told to take a plea deal. They were never really heard. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to care about my clients. I wanted to make a difference in this type of area that really needed good people that care. And so joining the advocacy program was amazing. It's the best thing in law school. I know it's kind of early for everybody, but people are going to ask, well, what do you want to do when you first come in? And there's going to be people that know, like, Andy, and they're going to know, I want to try cases. Like, that's where my heart is. I want to practice that. So yeah, the advocacy program is the absolute best. And it really helps you shape it. I know Andy could probably talk a little bit more about it, but she tried an entire case at the Bexar County's district attorney's office as a prosecutor. She basically was the first chair on that, and she did phenomenal. Cross-examine witnesses, direct examination, closing arguments, responding to objections, just things that people in the field that have probably been in 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 years can't do at that level. So.
My story is very similar to Andy's. I've known that I wanted to be a prosecutor for a while now. And basically that's what led me to the trial team in the first place, is that you think you know what you're going to do in the courtroom until they actually throw you into a courtroom and you're kind of a deer in headlights. So I agree 100% with what Jasmine said. Like, trial team will teach you how to do all that. And it's one of the best things that you can do. Advocacy in general, our program, it's one of the best things you can do in law school, because it preps you to be whatever type of attorney you want to be, whether it's at the appellate level or in the trial courtroom, or even negotiations with our ADR team. There's something there for everyone and what you want to do. But I unfortunately had a online orientation, so I didn't see or experience Dean AJ's level of excitement until I met him in person. But I do remember hearing about the trial team and actually seeing Andy give her closing statement for us as we were getting ready to try out. And it's just kind of like, this is where I meant to be. This is what I want to do and give my time to here in law school.
So I didn't actually know I wanted to go to law school until about my senior year of college. My interest was always things like the military or national security, stuff like that, but generally a general idea of kind of service to the country, stuff like this. But when I got to college, I saw that my college had just started a mock trial program, AMTA. So one of the schools that's followed in that podcast is undergrad mock trial. Not my school, unfortunately, but another school, and then did the exact same kinds of competitions that I did. And I realized that I really enjoyed trial. And when I got to senior year, I started kind of playing with the idea of going to either law school or going to graduate school. St. Mary's offered the opportunity for me to do both, to get a master's degree in international relations, as well as get my JD. I figured that was a great opportunity, sign up for that. And then whenever I saw that St. Mary's, or I could join the trial team here and the moot court team here at St. Mary's, I figured I've already done it before. I really loved it. I should keep doing it. And through that experience, I realized that I could also serve the people, not just in the ways that I had planned in the past, but also continue to serve them in not just the military, but also in a civilian role, just in case, the military didn't work out for whatever reason, then I could still serve. I could still do a lot of good for a lot of different people, no matter what it is, whether it's civil, criminal, government work, or anything like that. Of course, I do vaguely recall Dean AJ's speech to us my 1L year. I think all of us can agree that we kind of forget 1L year because of how stressful and time consuming it was. But I do remember how enthusiastic he was, and it showed me that he really cared, and that St. Mary's really cares about teaching us the skills, not just how to pass the bar, not just how to spew off the law, but how to actually convince people of your side or your client's side, whether it's the government in the case of Andy and Mariela, or of the defendant in the case of Jasmine. You can convince people of your side based on the evidence that it has and the law. It's just a whole other skill set that I think DAJ and St. Mary's has taught us a lot about and how to do it effectively.
Awesome. Well, thanks. So let me bridge a little bit on that kind of stressful time and things like that in law school. I mean, the advocacy team is teaching you how to get that practice out. And so sometimes it's not always a win. There's always a back and forth. There's always a struggle. And that's part of the practice. That's part of the learning experience. I wanted to play a segment a little bit about that. And then we'll talk a little bit about the sibling effect that I think is part of the second half of advocacy, which is the bonding and getting close to each other and understanding how to co-counsel, how to work with others and collaborate.
We're back with our St. Mary's University team in San Antonio. Andy Vizcarra, Jasmine Olguin, Mariela Encinas, and Cole Davila. They are the first to admit they beat themselves in their last competition. But today is a new day.
Yeah, hi, this is AJ Belita de Luna. I'm the Assistant Dean of Advocacy at St. Mary's University School of Law. So right now we're at the pre-dinner. We want our team to be together for bonding and focus. It's where we come together, where you have a drink, where you have a nice meal, and you get an opportunity to just bond.
I'm feeling really good today. I feel like we got out our nerves during Battle of the Experts. We really saw we need to improve on, and I think we're gonna do, God willing, pretty good this week.
God willing.
Because we're St. Mary's University.
Honestly, I can't really add to that. We're gonna do good. We all know what we're doing. We just gotta do it.
Cool, you never even get nervous. Or
I
you
get
never
nervous.
show
I
it.
just don't show it. I know how to hide it.
Look at him. You hear him? I could do that.
I got anxiety issues. I learned how to hide that a long time ago.
This is Class Action, and I'm Katie Fang. This is episode 7. Don't mess with Texas.
So let me set this up. The Best in Texas competition is going to be all Texas schools. There's 10 law schools in the great state of Texas. Texas A&M, Texas Tech, and St. Mary's are putting it together so that all the schools in Texas can compete. And so what we did is we said, we want this group of 4 people who had this great experience at a well-run tournament, but a bad outcome. The difference, though, is that we're going to have Mariela, instead of just playing a witness, she earned the right to pick up an advocate spot. So she's going to be the closer on the plaintiff's side of the case. And that's a lot of responsibility that we're giving to Tuel in her first competition. But we want to give her that. We think she's earned it.
Nothing else in my life. I am freaking out a little bit. Just a little bit, but I'll be fine.
Wait, why are you freaking out?
Because it's my first competition where I'm actually competing as an advocate.
Mariela posted 7 different memes of how stressed she was last night.
I posted
on social
one.
media.
Everyone's still on top of it. We bounced back from BOE and we're going well. They kept us together, thankfully. So we all know how each other works.
This is a civil case. So Cole and I are the defense and Mariela and Jasmine are the plaintiffs. The case is pretty short and sweet, like very, very short. Like my witness and the person that I'm crossing, like it's 2 pages double spaced of their statement. So it's like, okay, it's really just how you're going to argue the stuff. There's not a whole lot of facts there. Just work with what you got.
Your Honor, we do not intend to go into damages during today's trial. We will not go into any emotional or monetary damages. Our burden today is to prove that Mr. Williams suffered a permanent injury, that being quadriplegia. For experts,
Quadriplegia.
what did I say?
Quadriplegia. That's like not a real thing.
Word. You need to remind me that. Okay, say it again.
Quadriplegia.
Quadriplegia.
Not quadriplegia.
Why didn't you tell me this 4 weeks ago?
Because I thought you knew. That's just the way you said it.
Quadriplegia.
Oh,
Quadriplegia. Quadriplegia. Okay. Mr. Williams suffers from quadriplegia. Our expert today will explain
Mr.
what...
Williams is a quadriplegic.
You don't pronounce the I?
No.
Our expert witness today will explain what quadriplegia is and how Mr. Williams
What
suffers.
is?
What quadriplegia is and how...
Okay, we'll stop there. I was like, there's embarrassment there. Okay. I won't be tortured. So this is, I think, a good example of just a learning experience, being able to bounce ideas off of each other and getting immersed in it rather quickly. I mean, panelists, can you kind of comment on maybe your exposure level at the get-go, beginning Advocacy, the national team, and then that increased just like onload of all this information and knowing what to do every step of the way up until competition?
I'm not really sure I understood the question, but I want to bring it back a little bit before we start answering it. Just because some of y'all are looking like, you're like, why are we watching this thing? What is this YouTube thing? What is this podcast? Okay. The podcast was a big deal because I don't know who's seen the Innocence Files on Netflix or any kind of docu that's like I Am Killer, like those kinds of things. Okay. The producers for that decided they were going to make a Netflix series like Cheer, like Cheer on Netflix, okay, but about mock trials like across law schools across the country. They picked schools that had underrepresented populations. So St. Mary's has a huge, like way weird, not the norm, Hispanic student population. All of us are Hispanic. They picked a team from Brooklyn who had an all-female team. That's also really weird. 27% of trial lawyers, or 20% of lawyers are trial lawyers. And of that 27%, 3% are Hispanic. And of that 3%, only 1.72 are women. So they are picking minorities. They are picking people that are abnormal. And why are they so good at this? And St. Mary's is out here, you know, like on this side of San Antonio. They're kind of small. They've got all these like Latino kids coming to school here. And when we started this, it was kind of like, why do you care about us? Like, why are we important? Why do we matter? Throughout their filming, I think we fell in love with them and they fell in love with us, in that they wanted to show representation. And what can these kids do when you believe in them, when you give them this program, when you give them the tools to succeed? Can they make an impact? So now Jasmine and I are trial attorneys here in Bexar County, and we're surrounded by, which is great. Men are great. I'm not hating on men, but we're surrounded by men every single day, and they think we have absolutely no idea what we're doing, and they challenge us. And I'm like, yeah, like, let's take it to trial. Okay, like, let's do it. Like, it'll be so much fun. So I just kind of wanted to back it up, and that's why it matters. And that's why St. Mary's is so great. And I think this program is an absolute gem. And it is like the example of why I have to stop saying of why we're here and what you could do and what you could accomplish. The bonding that comes in is that we all bonded over this mutual experience, I think, that we've had growing up Hispanic, growing up Latino in the US. And it also obviously came about because as we were getting better, the only reason we got better is because we started learning each other's flaws. Vocabulary, okay, light, saying like, having the tics, things like that. And you rely on each other and you make each other better. And I don't even know. I just feel like at the end of it all, even though like Jasmine's on the other side now, I am a better trial attorney when she's sitting next to me all the time, 110%, because you have to have someone that watches your six, and you also have to have someone that will call your BS. That's not what's going to happen. But that's the kind of community that we have here. And also that's why we're watching these podcast videos, in case y'all wanted to know. But yeah, cool.
Kind of like what Andy said, trial or attorneys have this kind of, I think, reputation of being sort of the kind of solo in the way they do things, right? It's just them, they're the hero, it's them against the world, they're able to do everything. And you see that in media in general. Like if you watch something like a TV show like Suits or something, right? It's about one individual who's great at what they do and they're amazing at everything. When in reality, you can't get anywhere by yourself, right? Here, if you do something by yourself, in my opinion, you're just going to reinforce your own bad habits, right? No matter how many times you practice doing something, you're just going to keep doing the same thing wrong over and over and over again. And I think I learned that, and I was taught that and drilled into my head from whenever I was little playing sports all the way up until now, being on the trial advocacy team. All four of us together, we all have our own strengths and weaknesses. There's a lot of things that we are good at and a lot of things that we're really bad at. And each one of us could help spot that flaw, right? It's the kind of idea almost of like democracy in general, is the idea that you have more brains looking at one problem, you have more processing power, you have more of an opportunity to see the flaw and fix the flaw. So all of us together is able to do that. And I think that was important for me as a law student, was finding a group of people that had a like-minded sort of mentality and helped each other make it through. Everyone hears the horror stories from other schools where people, hide stuff in the library. Maybe they'll move the computer so you can't find something, just to give themselves an advantage, because law school is a competitive environment, right? We are competing with each other for grades rather than in normal grading where you're just graded based on what you do. So there's an incentive to be very competitive and kind of cutthroat, but I think it's important that we all step back and not be cutthroat. I think St. Mary's has a community that doesn't have that mentality of being, it's my advancement at the expense of everybody else. It's, if we all do well together, then the legal community does better, everyone's clients will all do better, and society in general will also do better.
So I guess based off of what I think his question was too, from like in this podcast, you'll see what was the first episode called Boot Camp, which Dean AJ puts the two L's who have just joined the team through, where you learn 1 week how to cross-examine a witness. And they like put you through it, and you have to do it at the end of the week. And I listened to this podcast after my first year of trial ad, after my 2L year, and I was like, whoa, like that was newbie Mariela. Like I had no idea what was happening. And I looked at that, and then I looked at what I learned in my whole 2L year, having competed with them. And then my second semester, I competed with other people. And it's just every single competition, you learn things. And kind of like what Cole was saying, you learn things from the different teammates you have about what you need to do to become better. And you'll just see a complete difference between one competition to the very next one. And there may have only been 4 to 5 weeks between the competition, but you're a completely different advocate. So by the time you're, a 3L and you're finishing your last competition, you're just ready, which is what Andy did, to go straight into a courtroom, where just less than 2 years before that, you didn't even know where to start. And that's truly what, that's what this program builds, is these advocates who straight out of law school, when a lot of people go into trial not having known anything, our coaches tell us all the time, like, I would love to be going against you in a courtroom because I know you know what you're doing. Or I'd love to be sitting next to you because I know you know what you're doing. And that comes from the different experiences from the teams that you build with. We got the opportunity to be together, but we also all sat on teams with other people, and we had to learn what worked, what didn't, and what we needed to do to become better advocates. And that's basically what you go through 2 years of just having to learn what it means to be in the courtroom.
Sure. Well, yeah, I've always struggled with this because I know that we're at different levels of the admission process, applications, and understanding of what law school offers. So yes, I think it's good to kind of backtrack a little bit and then give context to a lot of things. One of the segments that I think would be helpful then is to see what AJ talks about as far as the real world application to what this is, what this program offers. So let's see if we can play a little bit of that. And then we might want to turn it over to
luxury of learning on the backs of their clients. Because at the end of the day, trials are still happening. Even if it's to a lesser degree, they are still happening. And that's the cloud looming over all litigation. And if you take away that ability, then you're really losing a major tactical advantage.
So you preface what it is that you're trying to do. You mark it. You show it. You ask to approach. They validate its existence. You publish. That's kind of the gist of the way this works. Now, you all do have a document.
Let's be frank, right, AJ? You want to create the St. Mary's Law national team that's going to be competitively good. And you talk about that pressure cooker of these students. They've got their academic rigor and the academic demands. I think it's really relevant because a lot of criticism about law school has been, what's the real world practical benefit of going to law school? Like, what are you learning in the classroom versus maybe being on one of these trial teams? It is competitive to get on the team. I presume it's competitive to stay on the team.
It's very competitive to get on the team. It's very competitive to stay on the team. The pressure is high when you get on the team, and a lot of people don't make it. They withdraw on their own, or they withdraw through after a conversation. My number one goal is not to win championships. It is not. Don't get me wrong. I really love winning. I'm very competitive. If we were to break out a checkerboard right now, I'm going to play and play and play and play until I figure out how to beat you.
I like that you're already going in knowing that I'm beating you at the beginning.
There's no doubt about that. But you will get angry at me because I will make you keep going until I win, until I figure out what you're doing and I am not. So I want to impart that competitive spirit on my students, but it is not my goal. I grew up really, really poor, Katie. I mean, really poor. I had parents who left Cuba to come here to this country. They left on a boat, on one of the freedom boats, like many other Cubans that came to this country, fleeing a communist Cuba, Fidel Castro rule, and they came here with nothing, clothes on their backs. You don't know it by listening to me because you don't hear me as a Latino.
Oh, but I heard it right there, Latino.
I have seen how some people are treated versus other people. And I've been poor as an adult. And I've worked through it until I got to this stage in my life where I'm not poor, I'm not rich, but I'm not poor. What I know is this, is that there are a lot of people out there who are not getting the representation that they need. And I see day in and day out how people do not represent people correctly. They ask dumb questions. They ask questions that forward or advance the theory of the case for the other side rather than their side.
So help me out, panelists, articulate this in the idea of like, what's the big benefit and why is it so important? What is this national team so important? It sounds like AJ's saying that he has seen injustice himself personally, and also as an attorney over the years has seen attorneys misrepresent clients because they lack the skill set that they probably should have gotten in law school to begin with. So is that kind of what you feel in your sense?
Definitely. Hello? Okay, sorry. Definitely. I just came back from a trial right now. I'm watching two of my bosses, and it's difficult to see the evidence, and maybe I shouldn't talk about it yet. It's still ongoing, but it just seeing the skill sets, and it's not trying to talk bad about one side because they're also great people, and there's always a friendship between defense attorneys and prosecutors, as there should be, because we respect one another and we both are fighting for, what we think justice is. But just seeing questionings, the judge is constantly sustaining our objections because they're just way out of bounds, and they're just things that you wouldn't expect to see in a felony trial at a high level. And so we need good lawyers that know what they're talking about, that are trying to achieve, protecting their client in whatever way that is. So I think that's that.
The real world application of this is that the reality is that all of the books that I read in law school, every class that I took, whether I did well, whether I didn't, the bar, none of that is actually being a real lawyer. None of that teaches you how to do what we do. None of it teaches you how to object or how to protect your client or what to say or how to stop something, how to start something, how to get what you want. None of that prepares you for this. So the trial team did prepare us for this. Kind of going back to, it all kind of came full circle. Y'all should totally listen to this podcast. I'm not saying it because I'm on it. I'm just saying it's a trip. Okay. But at the end of, we had finished our season, our competition season. The three of us remained together throughout the whole year. And we finished up. We were kind of, sad it's over. It's like senior year, like end of an era kind of thing. And because of COVID and the demand in the courts, jury trials were stalled for years. I was a 3L. I had a practicing bar card, which just means that an attorney gets to supervise you and, they'll let you do something here and there with them sitting right beside you. An attorney at work at the DA's office said, I'm trying a case and I need a partner. And I said, oh my gosh, this is my dream. This is it. I would love to, whatever it is. And if you know anything about the criminal law system here in Bexar County, you don't know exactly what case that is that you're going to trial on that day. So a few days before, we were thinking like, the judge kind of was like, oh, I think this is the number one that's going to go. And I had already agreed to help, right? I was supposed to be the second chair. I'm supposed to just helping out with whatever I can. The lead prosecutor on the case went to Mexico for 5 days. So I was like, this is it. This is my time to shine. I can do this. I know I can do this because I've done it quite literally 500 times before, except this is a real jury. These are real people. 5 days before, I go look and I'm prepping this case. I'm looking at the filings. I'm like, all right, did they file motions? Like I'm checking on my thing and they filed a motion. So I open the motion, I'm about to read it. And I'm like, okay, signed defense attorney, right? The signature of the defense attorney was the man, the myth, the legend that had taught me everything that I'd known for the past 2 years. He was my coach. He's our coach, who she works for. So she was defense and I was prosecution, and we went to trial on a case. It was a misdemeanor and it lasted an entire week. So I just want y'all to like let that sink in. It was wild. It was like the most wild time of my whole life. I ended up arguing every single motion, every single outside the presence of the jury, every single objection, every single cross, anything, everything except voir dire, I think. And when it was done, the judge was like, "You're a student." And I was like, "Yes, I have not graduated and I have not passed the bar." He's like, "That's crazy. That's your first time crossing somebody." No, that's not my first time crossing somebody. This is my 500th time crossing somebody, but this is my first time crossing somebody in real life, like in front of a jury. That's the only difference. They still talk about it in that court because they're like, so many people are unprepared, attorneys that are 5 years, 10 years. They don't know how to do that. And nothing that you can read in a book, or it doesn't matter how many A's you get in law school, nothing will prepare you for that like this team does. Also, Jasmine did win, but it was on a technicality and I fought a really, really good fight. And also it wasn't my case, but I just did want to put that on the record. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that. But we were up there at the same time at one point because we were like, "Oh, may we approach?" And it was me and her. And I said, "Oh," I was like, "It's on." Yeah. And we argued about a rule of evidence, and it was like wild because we had not graduated, but it was the coolest thing we've ever done. So if you've ever dreamt about it, if you've ever been like, "I want to go and I want to be the Lincoln lawyer. I want to like stand in a courtroom. I want to fight. I want to," all right, that's awesome. But y'all got to learn how to do it because there is a mess of people in there that don't know which way is up or down. And I'm like, "Oof, y'all should have joined the trial team."
Let me actually turn it over to questions, and of course, anyone's invited to answer. But do you guys have questions for our panelists? And it's a lot to digest and take in, and probably without context, it's hard, but yeah, if you have any questions.
Just real quick for the whole, you got a double undergraduate degree or JD and a master's?
Yes, sir. St. Mary's has, I forget the technical term for it, but joint degree or dual degree program. So I came to St. Mary's, and you do 1 year of law school, and then you can apply to get into the program, and you apply to the graduate school. And then once you're in there, then your credits kind of change a little bit, but you basically go to law school and graduate school at the same time. And then when you graduate in May, or sometimes it takes people a little bit longer, but when you graduate, then you'll have your JD as well as a master's degree. So they have a few different masters here. I did international relations, the concentration security studies, but they have, I think, business management and a few other things like that. So yeah, that's something that St. Mary's offers. A few other law schools offer it, but St. Mary's had it in that specific field, which is something that I really love going into. So it worked out for me. Oh, what? You answered, because I don't know what you meant.
Don't worry about it. There was someone else that had a hand up.
I was going to ask, could each of y'all share why you chose St. Mary's?
So I chose St. Mary's, one, because of that program I just mentioned, but also because my mom and dad also came to St. Mary's Law School and graduated from here. So it's something that's sort of been a part of my family going forward. I'm from San Antonio, so I was able to stay at home. So just everything kind of, for me, pointed to coming to St. Mary's. They had everything I was looking for. It was close to home. My family had connections to it. Some of the professors actually taught my parents, and they're still here. So it just worked out perfectly for me.
I joined because of, I came because of the trial team. I knew that they had, it's just weird. We're like 14 in the country, and this one's the one that it's like in South Texas. And you're like, why is this here? You're like up there with like the UCLAs and the Baylors of the world. And I was like, wow, I want to be a part of that. So that's literally why I came to school here. Oh, new question. I went to undergrad. I'm from the East Coast. I went to undergrad at George Washington up in DC. So the change of pace was wild because Texas is, yes, it's amazing. Everything's better. It's bigger. It's amazing. But yeah, the change of pace was crazy, but the level of literally advocacy, like this team, is on par. I beat my undergraduate school in one of the competitions that we had. So literally why I came.
Came here mainly because my family's here. My parents are older and I wanted to be close to them. So, you know, and I also love the St. Mary's community and just the vibe, the culture, the people. They really care about you, and especially the professors.
So my story is a little different. I'm from Tucson, Arizona, and I chose St. Mary's, one, because culturally it's very similar to Tucson. The other schools were, East Coast, way north, really cold places, and I didn't want to deal with that. But it's interesting how life kind of puts things out there for you, because I didn't know about the advocacy program coming here. I also have family in Laredo. So I was like, oh, like at least I have someone here. But as I mentioned before, I always knew I wanted to be a prosecutor. So I feel like God kind of just planted me at St. Mary's, like, you don't know it yet, but the trial team is fantastic and you're going to learn a lot about it going to St. Mary's. So really it was just culturally, I love San Antonio. It's similar to home, had some family here, and it was not cold. So that's pretty much why I came here.
How did you feel the first year? I know it's going to lay the foundation for you to get ready for the second year and to get on that team. Do you feel the first year laid the foundation for you really well? Were you prepared for that?
First year's awful, I think. Just objectively. But once you get through it, smooth sailing. Honestly, no, I don't think it had any. Is that bad to say?
Well, expand why it was awful.
I'm sorry. It had no bearing on my growth as a human being. And people scare you and they're like, if you're not 4.0 GPA by the end of your first semester, it's all downhill from here. It's not true. None of it is true. If you don't learn how to become a lawyer, then it'll be downhill from there. No, I just don't think it made any difference. I mean, listen, there is a GPA requirement for all of these extracurriculars, wonderful extracurriculars that the school has. So like, don't be drowning so that you are ineligible. But I mean, do your best. Honestly, it laid a foundation for, this sounds crazy, but like when I was studying for the bar, I had a really phenomenal Civ Pro teacher my 1L year, and I'll never forget her. And so when I was studying for the bar, it's like one of the core ones that you study for. And that's the first time that I ever flashed back to 1L year. So quite honestly, I don't really do your best, but know that it gets better and you get practical experience starting your 2L year.
So I would slightly disagree a little bit, because for us, it was awful. One, because they pile in a ton of stuff on top of you. And then we also, the second semester of 1L year, that's when COVID hit. So we got this weird shift onto online. It was all around a mess. But I would say that it kind of laid a bit of the foundation in terms of what kind of was expected of you. Not so much of you're expected to know everything, because in 1L year, it's almost, I won't say, it's not quite hazing, but it's kind of getting in that direction, where they just want to make sure that you care enough that you're willing to suffer through the cold calls, through the hundreds of pages of readings from obscure case law from hundreds of years ago, where it's just pages and pages of run-on sentences. They want to make sure that you care enough to stay there. And you'll see, usually after that first semester, there'll be a lot of empty chairs because they didn't care as much as you did to stay. And then after that, it kind of stays the same. And the people that you know are going to remain because they cared enough to make it through. So they just kind of want to make sure that you care enough to make it through. And I think in that way, there is at least some level of foundation. But like Annie said, it was truly awful.
This is not to discourage anybody. Everyone be attorneys. Okay.
On a lighter note, you're talking to 4 trial attorneys. We all knew we wanted to be in the courtroom, and 1L year, you don't learn much of what is required in a courtroom. You get criminal law, right? But not all trials are criminal. I do have friends who are going into transactional law and doing things like that, who did have a foundation their first year, because we learn contracts and we learn things like that. And that's when the light bulb hits for them. And they're like, that's what I want to do. I do not want to do transactional law, and I don't think any of us would ever want to. So just know that you're talking to 4 trial, I want to be a trial attorney, and 3 trial attorneys who the practical experience, what we wanted to do, came 2L year. But a lot of my friends, fell in love with property and ended up going that route, or contracts and ended up going that route. torts, go that route, right? So a lot of people did have a foundation laid for them. It's just that the practical stuff that most trial attorneys want, it doesn't come till second year, until you learn evidence, until you learn trial ad, negotiations. So yes, but also if you're not wanting to be a trial attorney, you might just find your interest your first year, because a lot of my friends did. And they look and they're like, I don't know how you want to be in a courtroom. And I was like, I don't know why you want to be a transactional lawyer, right? You'll learn that there's different tracks and different minds in law school of what you want to do. So just know that 1L year is really, really hard, but you can do it. And we all did it. And a lot of people find what they end up loving their first year too.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. You're going, but I was gonna ask. So, what, you know how like you first start being introduced to a skill, and as you go forth, you kind of learn to master that skill to where you can apply it to multiple things, and then you get comfortable within that skill set. When do you feel like in law school, specifically at St. Mary's, as a general, did you feel like you were really, in a way, mastering that skill to where you could apply it and it was actually practical at that point?
Do you mean in general or like with trial advocacy?
Trial advocacy for sure, but also kind of general as a student.
I felt that about 2 weeks ago after my competition, to be completely honest with you. That's when it like clicked for me and things started flowing. And now that I work as an intern at the DA's, I see it every single day. And I'm able to help my attorneys prep a case for trial because I've done it that way. And so for me, the trial advocacy part of it, it clicked for me 2-3 weeks ago when I finally felt like I was actually, advocating a case in that one competition. In terms of like just the skill of reading and getting through school, it changes every year, at least for me, based off of what I have to do. So I don't know if that's what you mean, but like, I think it depends on like what you want to do when you pick up that skill set. Yeah.
Question real quick. So do you feel like the second year provided you learning how to formulate more clear and concise arguments and get into your second year after you finished your first year foundation, and you get to your second year, did y'all feel like you started learning to formulate all that really well? How'd y'all feel about that?
Yeah. So the question was, did we feel like our second year we were able to, I guess, talk more maybe about whatever we were learning about? How did our first year affect that? Definitely. The first year, it's just about learning what works for you. You're going to hear us a million times, but it really is like learning kind of like a different language. And second semester, second semester. So third semester, your second year, it's really applying that. Like you're not as scared because you're like, oh, I did this for an entire year. I kept learning. I know how to study. I know how to take just one exam a semester. I know what I need to do. And it's just kind of like keep doing that. And it's all about like hard work. It's all about choosing maybe not to go to that dinner with friends or, go out that night, to be able to stay home, review, study, maybe write down questions, get together with friends and kind of like help each other with your strengths and weaknesses. So it does build together, it builds on top of each other. And then by your third year, you're like, I got this, kind of, it's going to be okay. Like, it. So.
I think in terms of concise arguments, or getting concise in like oral skills or trial skills, I think it was the third year for me that, we start, your first year, you do this thing called like moot court. And everyone has to do it. It's mandatory. And so it's your first time making oral arguments. And it's like, the judge is like, okay, so what's the rule? And you're like, the second, and what, can I, well, they said that he was guilty, so that's good. And you just have your brain is going at 200 miles an hour and you can't do it. And then kind of, skills are a practice. And if you don't use them, you lose them. So consistently doing what we did for 2 years, I think entering third year, it was like, okay, so what was the rule? Your Honor, the rule of the court was that on this date at this time, you have the confidence, but you also know how to formulate your thoughts now when you have 500 things in your head going 500 miles an hour. It clicked to transfer those skills to different fields because I also worked in civil litigation. I did my summer associateship at a business civil litigation firm here in town. And my skills transferred and I knew that it clicked and I knew I could make concise arguments. When I was asked to take depositions by myself at the end of the summer before my 3L year, and I just applied like, oh, this is a direct examination. Easy, great. It was a 6.5-hour depo and it went off without a hitch. You make objections, like all that stuff. So it does come, and there will come a day when you're just like, oh, conciseness in my head and my thoughts and my words. It's amazing. But it takes time and it takes practice.
Okay, so my question is, there's 12 episodes, y'all. So if you all feel like going on an emotional roller coaster, I encourage you to watch more than just the one that we're talking about today. But there's an episode where I think it's Jared Hall that he's beating up on, right, about his accent. And he's like, Jared's getting like so angry and it's like, oh, and that's what AJ says, that he's supporting y'all and beating y'all down so that you can get better. So as you all, three of y'all, now that you've graduated and moved on to real world, and Mariela is a 3L, what do you think that did for you all as, not only as humans, but I mean, making that transition from, a law student to real world attorneys? I told AJ, I was like, if someone had done that for me before I'd gone into practice, I would have loved it. And, I just think that probably did a world of good for you all.
So for me, and let me go back for a second. When I started my 1L year, we had my common law professor. He told us that we are now, once we graduate and become attorneys, we're going to be the elites of society, the upper echelons of society based on our education, our experience, and all of this. And with that, it's very easy, I think, to kind of get a chip on your shoulder and a belief that you are superior to everybody else, that you know more than the person next to you, that, oh, this person, they messed up that cold call, therefore I'm going to do better than them on the test, or they're not going to be good attorneys, or whatever it may be. And I think with that example of what happened in the podcast, and then AJ kind of reminds you that you aren't perfect, that you're not infallible, that you're going to make mistakes going forward. And right now is the time to make that mistake, rather than on a case where somebody's, in the criminal law world, where somebody's life and future and freedom is on the line. In the civil law, let's say it's a tort or something, somebody who got severely injured, who can no longer function in everyday life, whether or not they get the paycheck that they need to survive and continue to live. So the stakes are a lot higher in the real world. And if you go in with that kind of arrogance, then you're going to get humbled, I think, real fast if you're not careful. And I think AJ, or Dean Belita Luna, was able to teach us by breaking us down, to show us that you don't know everything. Listen to your coaches who have years and decades of experience in different kinds of law, and training law students how to be good trial attorneys. Listen to them because they know what they're talking about, and listen to your peers, because just because they're at the same level as you doesn't mean that they don't know something that you don't know. Everyone knows different things. Everyone's good at different things.
I'm trying to think of what I'm going to say. Yes. So we had a saying in practice that you bleed in practice so you don't bleed in competition. So you get beat up real bad at practice. You don't know anything. You stop saying start over. Like the amount of times that you were just, I think I used to throw things at Jasmine when we would practice objections, because I was like, stop umming, like stop, just do it the right way. And vice versa, right? Like we all just have these things, but we do it, and we did it to each other, and our coaches did it to us, because I am so thankful for that now, because I'm like, I had the most embarrassing moments of my whole life. The first time I ever attempted a cross-examination, are you kidding me? It was in this room. I was wearing a mask. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. There's a recording of it somewhere in the Ethernet. It's terrible. And I'm just like, oh my God, I am so glad that didn't happen in front of a jury. Like, can you imagine? Like, no. So, this is a very safe space. It offers safe spaces for you to mess up royally, completely. Just let them do it, because when you come back, you're better, you're stronger, you're you're going to beat everybody else that has never had that experience.
Yeah, you definitely get broken down being on the team, but it's to build character and to build strength. And there's so many times I cried. Well, after practice, not in practice, but I would cry. I would just be like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I can't take it. You know, you're constantly being criticized, but it's to make you better and like help you grow. And that just now it's really helped me because I'm interacting with some very rude, disrespectful type people. And I think if I didn't go through trial ad, I would have cried on the spot. Like, oh my gosh, like this, witness is talking to me like this, like I'm going to cry, or this judge just, kind of like raise their voice to me, I'm going to go cry. Now I don't do that. The other day, the judge kind of like did some like shush to me or something. And I just handle it like, okay, cool. Like you stay composed, stay professional, and trial did all that. Like nothing is going to break me on the spot. Like maybe I'll go home and cry about it now still, but I know how to handle it. I know how to get through it. So it's really great.
So in the coach that we had in Best in Texas in the episode you just heard, he's very blunt. He came in at the very end just to help out Dean AJ, who actually helped us. He's very blunt. And I did my cross-examination like a week before we were supposed to compete. And he was like, that was bad. Like that was just all he said. I was like a 2L ready to I was like, yeah, like competition, gonna be an advocate. And he's just like, that was bad. And I was like, okay, so what do I need to do? And he took a step by step, like, what do you want from this witness? How are you going to get there? What are the words you're going to say? And it's that style of coaching that works for me. And I think that, that's like Jared, if you know him, he was upset, but when he did his cross-examination at the end of boot camp, he was fantastic. And it was because of that. That happened, right? It does make us very competitive. The fact that, they bring us down to that level, like Cole said, we go in there and we're like, we made the team, like we're good. And then they make sure to bring us down to build us back up. One of the sayings we have in practice is also perfect practice makes perfect. And that's a huge thing because we're never going to be perfect, but we're striving to get there during practice so that we can do that in the real world. So that when somebody's life is on the line, we're able to be perfect in the way that we need to be. But I think that the whole tearing down process really builds us into the advocates we are. And you can just kind of tell when we go into competition too, there's other schools that kind of look at you and they're like, oh, like hi, St. Mary's. And we're like, no, we're St. Mary's, but we're humbled because we've had that breakdown and we're built back up into these advocates that our coaches made us. So.
All right. I wish that we could play all of this podcasting episodes, and I wish we could take more questions. I know that there's probably a lot, but we have to move on and do our next segment, which are some tours of the campus. We actually have our students here to help us. But I first want to thank our panelists for being able to provide us all that insight about the national team. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedules, law students and lawyers, of course. So thank you so much for being here. Can we guys give a round of applause? Don't leave just yet. Graciano wants a group picture of y'all in front of our class action sign there. And then we got a little gift for you just as a thank you. Yeah. But for the rest of us, we're gonna go outside. We actually have a birthday in the house. I feel like a restaurant person. I have a birthday in the house. Cody Hoffman over here is a 3L. We love our students so much. So whenever there's a birthday or just an excuse to celebrate, well, we want to celebrate our students. So we have cake outside with the tea in the water. So if you guys will proceed outside, we'll take a little break before we go on tours, but both of them are going to tour us. We have Cody right out there.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Oh,